Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located in different parts of the world. Over 1,700 people have registered for the conference from 80 different countries. We have people from multiple time zones, so they will be streaming this content at different times of the day. For those of you who have joined us live here, and for those of you who will be streaming the content later on, welcome. This is Gaurav Deshpande. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with HyperTrack, and it is my privilege and honor to welcome you to the second day of Logistic Tech Summit. It's rare that I get to introduce people who are smarter than me. I'm happy and pleased to announce Ram Kakkad, Head of Product, who leads the product side and the vision for HyperTrack. He's my junior from my school, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, and I'm happy to say that he's smarter than me, and he's a wonderful individual. With that, I'm going to tee up Ram Kakkad to present the keynote, presenting really an overview of logistic technology, what it takes to build last mile logistic technology, share with you details about HyperTrack product that you guys have been asking for, share with you new features, roadmap, directions, everything you wanted to know about the product. So without further ado, take it away, Ram, and thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gaurav. I think, your energy is infectious. And I wanted to also just give a shout out to everybody who participated yesterday and attended yesterday. I think the kickoff, the day one of the summit was amazing. Loved the energy, loved what everyone talked about, lots to learn and lots to take away. And I'm super excited to kick off day two with the product keynote. So let's jump in. So let's just take a quick view on the agenda for the rest of day today. So today's session, I'll be walking through the builder journey, building logistics tech for the last mile. After that, we'll talk through what the HyperTrack product has to offer and how it impacts you. After my session, we have Muiz Chunara, who's our developer relations manager, running a hands-on workshop and certification on building with HyperTrack. Super exciting for anybody who wants to get really deep into how to use our product. Post that, we're going to shift focus to the operational concerns of last mile. We have a panel that's being hosted by Ben Allen, our head of sales. The panel will include Eric Geiler, who leads machine learning and intelligent dispatch at A&B Courier, Ben Johnson, our solutions architect, and Toby Becker, who's a product manager from Magalu. Super excited to hear what they've come up with in that panel. We spoke at length yesterday about how important ML and AI is, and how big tech has built deep moats in this space. So the next session after the panel is going to be the analytics and AI for last mile logistics. That'll be headed by Saurabh Das, who heads logistics intelligence at HyperTrack. He'll share how we democratize intelligence for last mile for all our customers. And finally, no good last mile platform can be built without scalable and secure infrastructure. And our lead engineers on platform and mobile, Thomas, Alex, and Eugene, will be having a session then. So super kicked to hear what they have to say as well. So let's jump into this session. So I added this slide actually after yesterday's panels and all that, because I felt that the messages from yesterday resonated with me so well that I felt it set great context for a product conversation about the space. So I wanted to just recap some of the key themes that hit home for me really well. Some of the things that came up on the business side was that hyperscalers have built deep moats in last mile tech. So Amazon, Uber, and the like, they have invested millions and millions of dollars, probably thousands of engineer years into the space. And now they have a big differentiated advantage that new companies, upstarts, or legacy companies need to match. The other thing is that on-demand is obviously very critical. We've heard of customers canceling orders beyond 2 days. That means that you need your last mile tech to be very responsive, and getting there is going to be critical for survival in the future. And finally, partnering with 3P has often resulted in loss of data for customers, for companies. They really should be owning their own customer data and own fulfillment data, but when you partner with 3P, you often lose control of that, which is a huge concern. On the tech side, speed to market, obviously very critical for survival, so need to keep that in mind. You need to have an end-to-end digital twin kind of tracking solution that can help you map the physical good in the digital world, and you can know where it is at all times and understand if there are any problems. From a remediation standpoint, playing back gig worker jobs is critical so that you can know what happened, answer any questions by customers, and in fact, resolve any disputes that might happen with the gig worker down the road. Coming back to tech, we've all kind of realized that the tech in the space is so archaic and so underinvested that incrementally building on what we had yesterday is often not the right way to go. We need to rethink, rebuild, reimagine what's possible, and that's what we're here to discuss today. Tech is way too complex to build. It needs to be easier today. And order assignment for on-demand and planned orders is difficult when you have supply in the field and you don't know if they're available for work or they're already working. Managing that state is complex and knowing where they are is complex. So that's kind of a landscape of the big themes that I heard from yesterday. Happy to hear from others, later in the call as we open Q&A. What else is important? But let's jump into what it takes to actually make headway in the space. So first of all, who needs last mile logistics tech? When you hear the term last mile, it's very easy to snap it to deliveries because that's probably what we encounter most often as consumers. But as we heard yesterday from multiple panelists, really anybody who fulfills orders through a fleet on the street needs to have last mile logistics tech. And so we covered gig workers who do services. We covered, folks who visit oil pumps and service those. And there's a wide range of businesses that actually need last mile logistics tech. Just to give you a few examples, we also work with health services companies who have technicians going to folks' homes to manage health tests. We work with field sales management companies that have large fleet on the street, covering their own respective areas and trying to track sales meetings. And so there's really no barrier on which type of company needs last mile logistics tech or which type of business does. I think the core requirement is you need to have people moving on the ground. And that's when last mile tech becomes really important. Coming to the fleet part of it, traditionally, businesses used to have their own fleet doing all their fulfillment. We've now obviously seen the explosion of the gig worker economy. And so there are some businesses that only have gig workers. But a new trend we're also seeing is companies using mixed fleets. So you have partially in-house fleet and partially gig worker fleet. And what that means from a technology standpoint is that you need to make sure that your end customer experience is consistent and your internal operations are consistent, regardless of the type of fleet being used. Else there's too much load in figuring out which type of fleet is being used and the experience is unpredictable. So having a standardized technology solution that works across all types of fleet is critical. So that businesses that use, contracted capacity or, have some amount of in-house fleet, but complemented with gig workers during peak demand can have a consistent experience for their customers. So when a business is starting out, usually they'll end up, building out whatever they need on the front end to generate revenue, and logistics is often an afterthought, as we discussed yesterday. What that means is typically last mile will start off by managing, Excel sheets and phone calls to everybody involved. And it's a really scrappy and manual process that kind of just gets the business going. But very quickly, as you reach any kind of realistic scale, like let's say, hundreds of drivers or thousands of orders, that process starts to break down. It's not possible for ops managers to keep manual track of so many things in Excel sheets. They can't keep calling drivers and customers for updates. They often won't know if orders are going wrong until the customer has called in and informed them that they didn't receive an order. And so very quickly, a business will realize that they need to build a tech solution for this. But then what does that result in, right? When you're in a scenario where you don't have the technology solution, you have frustrated customers, frustrated drivers, and frustrated ops managers. And you don't really know what to do about it because you have no tracking on the ground. So then you find that you need to get to a tech solution. Now, coming to a tech solution, you start off usually evaluating one of two options. Either you'll build it from scratch or you'll buy, as we discussed yesterday. But both of these are rife with their own problems. If you think about building it from scratch, then you need to start learning about, what are the mobile technologies involved? What are the mapping technologies involved? What are the cloud technologies involved? And start to figure out how you can orchestrate all of these things. You'll quickly realize that these tech solutions are not built for logistics per se. They're built for their own siloed applications. And so building together and executing last mile then becomes super complex and expensive, leads to super high TCO from an engineering investment standpoint, because you need to have engineers across each touch point to build it out for you. On the buy side, what you'll realize is that applications often don't give you enough flexibility to customize customize workflows for your needs. As we saw yesterday, the most innovative companies have very strong opinions on what their workflows for customers as well as internal operations should be. A package solution won't let you have that flexibility, and they'll quickly become very limiting, and you'll kind of be in a lock-in scenario where you've reached a certain scale with the bot solution, but now you can't innovate any further. So at the end of the day, when you try either of these solutions, you'll basically run into a lot of questions. And this picture is very representative of some of the builders we've had conversations with after they've actually been through that cycle of trying to build or buy their own tech. So some of the common questions they'll actually ask us is, why is location unavailable for my driver fleet? I mean, all of us use share live location in our consumer apps, and we all think it's going to be very easy to enable that from a logistics standpoint. But since these are not built for centralized server orchestration, it becomes very difficult to know when and why a location is not available. There are about 40 outage reasons that are possible, and each of these needs to be managed individually. And as a business, is that really the core you want to focus on, or focus on other things that might directly impact your customers? Finally, if you do manage to get past some level of location tracking, the next thing you're going to encounter is drivers are going to start complaining about battery, and they're going to turn off their phone or turn off your app or deny permissions to your app. And that leads to blind spots all over again. So then you need to figure out how to balance these two considerations, which is, again, another complex problem that's probably not as core for your business as needed. And then you're going to figure out, okay, how many more engineers do I need to solve for this problem? What is my total cost of ownership and investment? And if you do manage to finally build a solution, then the unpredictable piece is, what are your cloud and map costs? Because logistics might require and will require multiple calls to each of these services. Each of these is going to be priced on a per API basis. So you're going to have to do complex math about, okay, I made these many map calls and these many cloud calls to perform to fulfill one order. So what is my per order cost going to be, and are my unit economics even possible? So what do you do about it? The new way to build, and that's where HyperTrack comes in, is to build with API, where the complexity of location and logistics tech is taken care of under the hood, while you can focus on innovating for what's best for your customer and leaving that complexity to your API partner like HyperTrack. So we provide a suite of services, SDKs and APIs that let you manage the entire order fulfillment lifecycle for the last mile, starting from planning and assigning for efficient operations to tracking orders for fulfillment and providing real-time ETAs. And we also provide you, since you're building with an API partner, the data is all your own. And so you can also learn end-to-end how through every fulfillment activity that you conduct through HyperTrack, we'll gather the data and use it to learn to improve our fulfillment in the future. So that's where our intelligence and ML will come in, which Saurabh will be talking about later today. So fundamentally, when you're building a logistics tech solution, there are three stakeholders that you need to keep in mind. There's the ops manager, the driver, and the end customer. The ops manager is critically focused on the most important KPIs for last mile logistics. And these include things like, cost per order and on-time order rates. There are many other KPIs like order productivity, how much time was the driver idling en route, and things like that. Those usually come in sort of as the second level of important parameters, but they all need to be tracked and improved over time. The driver, on the other hand, wants, simple operations. He wants an app that lets him manage his work very easily, does not drain battery. A critical thing that often won't come up in your first sort of go around when you're trying to build logistics tech is privacy requirements. Since you are tracking driver location, privacy is a massive concern. Drivers will complain if they feel they're being tracked unexpectedly or unreasonably. And you need to make sure that you're only tracking in the context of work and not otherwise. On the end customer side, we discussed multiple times yesterday, you want to make sure that, the end customers obviously want on-demand and on-time fulfillment. They want to have visibility end-to-end into their order lifecycle, so they don't have to contact your customer service and burden them with questions or waste their time. And so easy to use, easy to access tracking is super critical for end customers. And from a builder standpoint, each of these stakeholders can have, different touch points to the product, and your solution needs to plug into those workflows very natively. So understanding the diversity there and building towards it easily is critical from a builder standpoint. So I want to spend some time on the HyperTrack product approach, which is kind of laid out in this slide. Let me first start by focusing on the red area, which talks about the features that we offer to our customers. And the reason I start here is because at HyperTrack, we pride ourselves in making an informed choice on how we structure our features for you. We believe that it's important for us to make sure that we understand the type of work you're trying to manage and natively give that to you through simple to use APIs in our product stack. And so each of these boxes that you see here is a feature that we believe maps uniquely to a unique type of use case that you need to solve for. So let me first start with Nearby, which is in the order assignment space. Nearby, as the name suggests, lets you basically find drivers who are near a particular order destination. So this is really useful for on-demand order assignment, where order comes in, you want to fulfill it in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of cost. So why don't you find the driver who's closest to it and assign it to that person? And this obviously utilizes live location. Self-improving routes is our end-to-end order planning, assignment, and tracking solution. So once you've accepted an order and its fulfillment needs to be planned, assigned, and tracked, you can use this feature. And one of the, again, product tenets that we have is predictable per order pricing. So under the hood, HyperTrack will orchestrate all cloud mapping and mobile calls as needed, but you will see a consistent per order price for any feature that you use. Beyond the order assignment and planning features, we come to the order tracking features. And as you can see, there are multiple options over here. Different customers in different contexts can use different features depending on what they're trying to achieve. We covered this yesterday as well, where there's no one size fits all for last mile fulfillment. You really need to understand what business KPI you're trying to improve and build the right solution for that. And so these different tracking features offer you a lot of variety in how you can achieve those KPIs without having any overheads. So on-time routes is our tracking solution that lets you track orders where there's an ETA. In this case, if you have a driver who's supposed to finish orders in a sequence and you want to calculate the ETAs of every subsequent order, then you can use the on-time routes feature. We'll automatically calculate ETAs and forecasted delays for you, along with tracking, distance travel per order and things like that. Flexible routes is for use cases where businesses let drivers decide how they want to fulfill orders, and they just want to have visibility on where the driver is. So if I'm dispatching, let's say, a 30 order bag to a driver, and the driver then decides how to fulfill that, the business does not really know which order is going to be fulfilled first, and hence you can't calculate ETAs. But you do want to know if the driver is making progress, moving along, and so you want to see the live location in case there's any remediation issue that comes in later. And so flexible routes allows you to do that very easily. Geofences and geotags are the other two features. Geofences is an automatic way for you to track work or track order fulfillment, where you can make geofences around target locations and track visits to those whenever your driver has clocked into work. In this case, the driver doesn't have to make any manual work update. The visits are automatically tracked. So it's a super simple process from a driver's perspective. And geotags is an SDK only method for order tracking. You can dispatch orders to your driver, and the driver can in the app mark them complete as he goes. It's an SDK only integration, so super easy. It's often the fastest way to add location intelligence to your logistics. And yeah, geotags comes with the ability to also detect deviations in expected location. So if you do have an expected location for work and you want your driver and you want to capture that, then you can send that as part of the geotags payload, and we'll compute that and send that back to you. Now, once you've decided to implement a feature, you also need to consume the signals that we're generating for you. And so that's where the interfaces and applications come in. So the interfaces basically offer you easy ways to consume information and plug it into your experiences. So we have API interfaces, webhooks, operational views, and consumer views, which are all embeddable. And so you can pick and choose how you want to build the experience on your side. If you want to use APIs and webhooks and just build a completely native experience, that's up to you. You can absolutely do that. If you want to embed HyperTrack's dashboards into your operational views, you can do that. That'll give you a quicker way to get to market. And if you want to also share the order tracking links with your consumers using share links, you can absolutely do that as well. And all of these can be embedded or used as is out of the box. So the other thing you can do is you can start one way, depending on which part of the puzzle is most critical for your business use case, and you can switch over to some other part of the solution as you go. So it's super flexible, super easy for you to adopt and move on. And finally, on the top is the applications, which is all our stock views that are available. On the mobile app side, we have a ready-to-use driver app, which in case you're just getting started and you don't have your own driver app, you can use this to manage your fleet. I'll come to that a bit later. Now that we understand the features and how you can consume the work that's being managed through HyperTrack, I think the next thing to understand is how are we architected to deliver this to you, and what capabilities are you essentially getting out of the box under the hood, right? So at the root, we have the Android and iOS SDKs that are managing location tracking on the phone. We've optimized these SDKs to balance, the battery consumption, the accuracy of location, and the real-timeness of location. One of the key concepts in HyperTrack is that we care mostly from a live location standpoint. What businesses care about and what HyperTrack is optimized for is caring about movement of the driver on the field. So we adopt a variable frequency location model where if the driver is moving really fast, we increase location tracking, and if the driver is stationary, then we reduce location tracking. So that helps us optimize battery consumption for the device, and which improves the driver experience but does not lose any business critical information. We have multiple wrappers which you can use depending on what stack your builder team is comfortable with. All of this, as I said, optimizes for real-timeness and battery. And on top of that, we have a platform that manages scalability and latency, and it's highly available. Basically, all this ensures that we have accurate and real-time locations for processing, which feed into our intelligence layer, which is where all the good stuff from a product standpoint happens. This is where we calculate, the routes that need to be computed, the service times of your orders, the timelines and orders at risk, and all the other signals that you need to consume as you're managing a fulfillment operation. And intelligence is also where we house our ML and basically learn from on-ground fulfillment what needs to be improved for the next round of fulfillment. So let's walk through really quickly what a product workflow would look like from your perspective. So on the left-hand side over here, you can see this is how you would set your intent on HyperTrack, and on the right-hand side is how you would get the output of the work that we've done for you. So typically, you'd start by setting a work intent using our REST APIs. You could do that through the other, through your operational views or your driver app as well. But most often, players at scale will use our REST APIs to set work intent. You'll basically be using one of our features, could be any one of these, and that would indicate to the cloud that we need to do the work for you. The cloud would automatically decide which features need to be computed, what aspects need to be communicated back. So for example, if you're using self-improving routes and you need route optimization, we'd compute the optimized routes. If you're doing an order assignment, we'd compute the nearby search results. And then we'd send those back to you to the interfaces and the touch points that you require. So if you, for example, want to capture the events that we're processing, you can use our webhooks. You can also get these through REST APIs directly. For your ops views, you can construct unique views on your own using GraphQL, or you can also use our embeddable views to natively fit into your application, depending on what experience you'd like to provide to your operational managers. For your driver app, once you've told us that an order needs to be assigned to a driver, we basically assign that to your driver app, which talks to our SDK. And we also provide outage notifications to the driver app, so the driver can know if they need to change something on the phone to make sure that they're tracking well. And on the consumer experience side, we provide you a share URL for sharing order tracking views with consumers, and you can also construct custom views using a views SDK or GraphQL as the need be. So this kind of provides the overall end-to-end workflow for how the product works. Let's talk about some of the product features that you get out of the box that will help you accelerate your time to market. So on the driver experience side, you obviously could use our SDK to create your own driver app or build into your own driver app. But as I said, you could use our Visits app, which is available on the Play Store on both iOS and Android. And that would basically provide your drivers a way to receive work, update the work, manage their clock in and clock out, etc. These screenshots just provide a high-level overview of that experience. Moving on to the operational experience, we spoke at length yesterday about how operational managers need to have real-time visibility into order fulfillment. And so this view is kind of what an order fulfillment view would look like for an ops manager. As you can see, there's a summary of the work that's being done by the driver and the polyline on the map, providing the manager with full context of what's going on the ground. There's also the ability to replay this. One of the concerns that came up yesterday is the ability to replay for remediation use cases, and that's possible through this view. Ops manager also have some controls in case the drivers have not done part of the work, like for example, completing an order if a driver forgot about it or something. The ops manager has some controls to update these as well. And finally, on the consumer experience side, like I mentioned, we provide order tracking links to consumers, which you can share with your consumers. That control of whether to share it or not is obviously rests with you. But if you were to share it, then I'm a customer, then this is what I would see through a simple tracking link. I can see where my driver is, what the arrive by time is. And this would obviate the need for me to call customer service, which is, again, a great customer experience. So yeah, let's walk through some of the impact that we've created with some of the businesses that we're, Let's quickly walk through the impact that we've helped deliver for some of our partners. In this case, I'd like to talk about how we improved the time to market for an on-demand staffing company. The company came to us with the need to basically launch a completely new solution to manage their on-demand staffing workforce. They hadn't built anything yet, and they were catering to warehouses, distribution centers, and event venues. They wanted to sort of raise the bar for service in the industry by providing visibility to operations and to customers about where the gig worker is. They wanted to manage the quality of fulfillment by doing automatic fraud checks or flagging things that were looking unusual in the fulfillment lifecycle. And so they came to HyperTrack and worked with us to implement the on-times route feature that basically helped them detect late arrivals, no-shows, or any fraud. For example, if orders were completed very far away from destination. The destination geofencing notifications help them detect arrivals, departures from the worksite and provide notifications. And they also had real-time visibility of their workers en route so they could tell if the driver was going to reach on time or not. Coming down to improving on-time order rates for deliveries. So in this case, we were working with a on-demand order fulfillment company that was working with some major retailers, and they were working to fulfill orders within 30 minutes. So their legacy approach to do this was to use static driver locations based on the driver home address or the driver's service area to allocate orders. But as you can imagine, that would not be accurate because drivers could be moving around in the field, especially if they're gig workers. And so as a result of this, they had low on-time delivery rates for short order SLAs. They worked with HyperTrack to implement our SDK in their driver app. They already had one, so they just need to integrate our SDK, and that provided them access to live location. And HyperTrack nearby search was then used to find the closest drivers, and this actually helped them improve their on-time order rates by 3% in the first launch. Coming down to workflow automation. So we spoke about this a little bit yesterday. We were working with a fieldwork company that essentially had workers going out to homes to work on crawl spaces. And there were issues where they were getting a lot of customer contacts to figure out where the worker was. And the post-work problem that they had was that the customers would not respond to their NPS surveys, which were coming in way delayed from when the order was actually completed. And so what they did was they implemented on-time routes, which provided customers visibility into where the worker was and when he was actually reaching. And as soon as work was completed, they provided NPS surveys to the customers. So in context, they were able to increase their NPS survey rates, which ultimately provided them a great way to track the quality of their work. This is an interesting example because, again, it comes from a diverse sort of industry. We've talked about field sales management a little bit. So this is an education technology company working in India where they have a large field sales force that maps schools. And at scale, it became very difficult for them to know which sales manager was meeting which school and how is their pipeline actually maturing. So they've now used HyperTrack Visits app to let their sales managers clock in whenever they're starting their work route. They've created geofences around each of the schools, and whenever a sales manager visits a school, that visit is captured. The time that's been spent there has been captured. The distance traveled from school to school is captured. And what this helps them do is, on the sales management side, it helps them track their meetings, which is critical for any sales activity and sales motion, which helps them ultimately forecast revenue and new acquisition more accurately. And also from an operational standpoint, because they're already tracking the distance traveled by individual sales managers for work, they're able to automatically reimburse payouts and not rely on Excel spreadsheets and odometer ratings, which is super messy and super cumbersome and has, creates frustration across both the sales manager team as well as the operational team. Coming to on-demand order planning, this is a super interesting recent use case that we've seen again, where traditionally we've looked upon planning in two extreme scenarios. One is on-demand orders where we need to dispatch orders right away. And then there's the scheduled order planning where you have scheduled orders and a fleet that's available and you need to match the two. On-demand order planning kind of marries these two concepts together, where you now have on-demand orders which have low SLAs, like say 2 hours or so, and you have drivers on the street who are fulfilling orders. So they have existing work that's being completed, but you want to batch and route these short-term orders to that live fleet. So in this case, a customer used our orders API, and we'll talk through that in the different planning modes that are available. Essentially, what this enabled them to do was use their live fleet and their live order book of their fleet to factor into planning and dispatch orders with low SLAs to them. I'll talk about this a bit more in our future, in our API updates. So let's talk about the product launches that we've done recently. Order score. One of the themes that came up yesterday is that businesses are now expecting consumer-grade experiences for business workflows, and logistics is no different. So order score is kind of like our take on that. All of us have encountered health tech applications which really demystify how health metrics are calculated. For example, sleep metrics, or I ran a marathon recently, and I was tracking my metrics very closely. So order score is kind of that experience, but for order fulfillment. So as you can see on the right hand side, the order score basically is a numerical number that evaluates the quality of your fulfillment across a wide array of parameters and gives you feedback. And this is what ultimately feeds into the ML models that we're going to build to improve your fulfillment over time. So the order score today has 4 components. This just went to production yesterday, so super fresh off the oven. So the order score is comprised of 4 components. There's route efficiency, delays, address accuracy, and tracking rate. The route efficiency covers whether your driver took the shortest path between 2 orders and whether there was a lot of idle time on the way to check if productivity was impacted or not. Delays cover whether the order was obviously fulfilled on time or not, and whether the driver arrived on site or not. Oftentimes you see the driver might have arrived close to the location, but then got lost on the last mile and hence got delayed in fulfillment. It's important to track this very granularly. The address accuracy covers where the driver parked and where the driver ultimately fulfilled the order. If you see large deviations in the address, that means that your customer address book is potentially incorrect. The geocodes are not workable. And that would be a call for you to update that internally and create your own address book. And tracking rate is really, it represents how long you were able to track the order fulfillment compared to what your intent for tracking it was. So for example, if an order starts now and gets completed in an hour, you need to track it for 60 minutes, but there might be outages on the way, and that could lead to a low tracking rate, which ultimately creates blind spots for you. So tracking rate will help you check whether you're able to track the order accurately or not. And that's ultimately attributed to, device issues, which are not controllable by the driver, or driver issues, which can be acted upon by the driver through coaching. So super excited to launch this feature. Would love to hear from you, how this can help you improve your last mile. Would love to engage in some conversations and see how you can use this. The order lifecycle API, I touched upon this briefly in the order planning discussion. And so like I mentioned, we allow planning in 3 modes. This is one API essentially that lets you plan, assign, and track orders. So it makes it super easy for you to implement. You don't need to worry about routing separately, tracking separately, and then creating signals separately. It's just one API. We support planning in 3 modes: on demand, which is one route, one driver. This is typically relevant for nearby dispatch for on-demand orders. And the scheduled mode, like I mentioned, is batching and sequencing scheduled orders for based on known driver schedules. The pool mode is what we've introduced new to the market, which is basically batching and sequencing orders using driver live location. And let me just illustrate this through a little more visual example. So let's assume that we have a warehouse over here and you have 10 orders that need to be fulfilled. And there are 3 drivers in the fleet that are currently fulfilling orders. Each of them will have a certain ETA for when their current order book will be completed. The 10 orders need to be batched in sequence for all these drivers. You can't assume that all of them are available immediately. Each of them, like the closest driver might not be available for another hour if that's what the current order book looks like. And so pool mode essentially uses live driver availability based on current workbook for you to batch and sequence near-term orders. So the impact of this could be that instead of having to dispatch one order at a time to one driver, you can now batch and sequence these and improve your order unit economics at scale. Orders at risk. So at HyperTrack, we want to take away the burden from you of having to know which orders are not going to be fulfilled on time and proactively inform you of any risks that occur so you can take action. So orders at risk is our approach to that. In this view, you can see that there's an at-risk orders list here, which has these orders. There are multiple risks that we evaluate on. For example, in this case, the first order is delayed. The second order is deviated from distance. We see very unique business use cases where deviation from a path is an important risk. Because for example, if you're transporting high value goods and you want to know if a driver took a wrong turn, because that might indicate something's going wrong. So, customers can identify different types of risks here. We manage a plethora of other risks, like whether the battery of the phone is low and the driver might be at risk of going offline, if the ETA is increasing, for example, etc. And we'd love to sort of share that with you offline. Places is a new upcoming feature that will be released shortly. We track a lot of fulfillment work across companies and across customers. And there's gems hidden in all this tracking that we'd like to surface to you to improve your last mile logistics over time. So for example, Places is one way to do that. So in Places, we basically detect places of interest for you or unique things about places from the fulfillment data that we've tracked for you. So in this particular view, you can see we're tracking parking locations, high deviations in order fulfillment destination, high service times, and high outage locations. And so what this would do for you is that, if you learn parking locations in the future, next time a customer places an order in a destination, you can navigate the customer to the parking location so that they don't need to find one, and then they can go and fulfill the order. This will reduce time taken to fulfill orders and improve your driver efficiency. Similarly, where there are large deviations in order destination and order fulfillment, that's an indication to you that there either is a driver behavior issue or there is a address issue that needs to be solved for. And this helps you improve logistics over time by learning from every fulfillment activity. Yeah, one of the key things that we heard about from builders was it was very difficult to get started building last mile tech because fundamentally you need a fleet on the street that's actually sending back live location. And so to short circuit the process of you having to find drivers, have them install a driver app, build an app if you need one, and then stream back location, ask them to move around to simulate location. We've actually built this for you via simulated drivers. So this kind of marries the concept of the metaverse with last mile logistics. In this video, I'm showing the order tracking sample from our dashboard. If you log into your HyperTrack dashboard and go to the playground, you can basically select a city for simulation and add drivers to it, which are simulated, and then assign an order. What you'll see over here, it looks like we're running a bit short on time, so I'll skip through the video a little bit. But yeah, what you can see over here is the order is tracking has started, and this view is actually the operational view that a ops manager would see. And so, it provides very clear visibility of what the driver activities for the day are, as well as where the driver is on the map. And the driver can then, the ops manager can take actions like we saw before. I'll move forward in the interest of time. We also have a simulation for nearby search. And I'll skip through this since we're a little short on time. And yeah, finally, the SDK is what powers a lot of our location-based logistics, and improving the SDK and making it best in class is a key part of our charter. We're releasing a new SDK towards the end of year, and just to give you the dimensions that need to be managed when you're managing location on device, these are all the areas where we expect to improve our SDK now. We're expecting to reduce its size. We're reducing our permissions, which has been a big driver complaint. Drivers are very wary of giving too many permissions for tracking. We're going to make the tracking more robust so it can respond better to server-side tracking intent controls. Battery optimization has been a key concern and will continue to be one for all drivers and companies. So especially in the gig worker space where drivers can churn out very easily, and battery is one thing that you actually see drivers commenting on in App Store reviews for multiple customers. Bidirectional socket communication improves the real-timeness, responsiveness of the SDK to server-side intent changes. WebAssembly will improve the ability to change app configuration without having to have your drivers reinstall the app at scale. Whitelisting guidelines goes back to low tracking rates. We will be publishing guidelines around how customers can whitelist their app and reduce, server-side, reduce the OS actually killing the app. And we'll be improving our integration issue notifications so that you can proactively improve, how your driver app works with our SDK. Cool. So I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. Would love to open it up for questions. Gaurav, yeah.
Wonderful. And we have over 200 people live here on the Zoom and on FeedLoop. It's wonderful to see so many of you taking the time out of your schedules to join us. Let's open it up for Q&A. We have our first question for you, Ram. Does the order tracking work for unconventional markets like India, where address quality is very poor? In fact, I think it was designed for places like India. You are weighing on that, Ram? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
HyperTrack is used by 300 customers, just as a context, and about 30% of the customers are in India.
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. And yeah, we work with a lot of customers in India. Couple of issues with India, multiple low-end devices, mapping issues, etc. I think the critical piece of that is that you want to be in control of your order tracking so that you can learn from ground truth data and build up your own data. So that's where we help, right? So the SDK will work. You will be able to get location, but the critical thing is there to build in the systems with HyperTrack so that you can learn from ground truth, find out areas where your addresses may not be accurate and things like that, and build your own address book. That's how the best companies do it. These are not new problems. Every company that's ever tried to build logistics tech in India has faced this problem. I think using ground truth data to build real signals is the way to go, and that's what we help with.
Excellent. Very good. I had a question for you, and I'll ask a couple of more questions, Ram. This is a question that keeps coming up. As we are looking at the product roadmap, product directions, I know that we already have the playground feature, we have simulation. What are some of the other things that you're thinking about in terms of the future that you are most excited about? You don't need to mention the time frame, but I guess everybody would love to know where you're taking the platform in the next couple of quarters.
Yeah, sure. So, I spoke about the address book. I think that's going to, the places on address book, I think that's a key feature that we're obviously very excited about, where we start surfacing the intelligence of locations from all the fulfillment activity that you're tracking through us, and ultimately give you the ability to feed that back into your future operations. So that's extremely exciting. The second thing is we talked about the order score, which was launched very recently. We want to take that to the next level. So right now we've started off with 4 sub parameters that we are evaluating for you to give you an overall fulfillment efficiency score or the order score. We'll be extending those parameters and providing you actionable insights on how you can improve those scores. We'll also be extending that score to all other entities in your ecosystem. So for example, if you want to evaluate your drivers and provide a driver score to figure out which drivers have the best or worst order scores, because that'll tell you whether drivers have systemic issues and need coaching to improve your overall fulfillment. It'll also give you the ability to proactively tell your driver how they can improve things like tracking rate. And that ultimately will improve the driver company relationship, which is critical in the gig worker economy. So, those things are really exciting. And yeah, we'd love to hear from customers on some of the other things they would like to hear us solve.
Wonderful. There is a question here about how long after the summit concludes will the videos for each presentation be available? Let me answer that question. Within about 2 hours of the live session, we will post the recording right here on the portal, on the FeedLoop portal. So if you are registered, you have access to the FeedLoop portal, and you'll be able to access that there in 2 hours as the recorded session available on demand to replay. The second question was about slides that you have here, Ram. We will be distributing the slides tomorrow. We'll make sure that we distribute the slides tomorrow. And we'll also reach out to you guys, those of you who have joined us live and those of you who are streaming the session, to get your feedback about the conference. This is the first time we are getting a community of logistic tech community of 300 companies across 80 countries. It's wonderful to have all of you guys here. Some of you are attending live. Many of you are streaming sessions after the sessions have gone live because it's in a different time zone. And we will share slides with all of you, and we'll also send you replay links tomorrow again. And if you want to set up conversations with HyperTrack team, with Ram, with our solution team, we'll also send you a link for that tomorrow, so you can click on it and schedule conversations with HyperTrack team to discuss your logistic tech projects. Excellent. Let me see if I have more questions on the Zoom. No, I think we have covered all the questions that we had so far, Ram.
Cool.
And thanks a lot for joining in, guys. It's been wonderful having over 200 of you live here. And given the time zones and engineers' tendency to stream stuff as opposed to join live, I'm sure we'll have a lot more people joining on later today. Don't go away. If you are an engineer, if you're a hands-on engineer, you definitely want to attend in the next session with Muiz Chunara. Muiz Chunara is the developer advocate manager, developer relationships manager, and he's presenting a hands-on workshop for 2 hours, which is going to teach you how to build logistic tech applications using Maps, Cloud, and HyperTrack. So stay tuned for that. And we look forward to seeing you on the next call in about 10 minutes. So grab a cup of coffee and come on back for the hands-on workshop. Again, hands-on workshop will also be recorded, but the live workshop is always, for me at least, more fun to attend. But yes, it will be recorded, but do join us live. It'll be wonderful to have you there. Thanks a lot, Ram. Thanks a lot for presenting, and have a great, wonderful 10 minutes of coffee break, and then we are back on for hands-on workshop. Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Ram. I think you can end the session now, and we can come back in
Yep.
for the next session.
Cool. Thank you.
Wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you.